Good evening, and welcome back to Dreamward Stories. Take a moment now to get comfortable. Pull the blanket a little closer. Let your hands rest, and allow your breathing to become slow and easy. There is nothing you need to solve right now, nothing you need to hurry toward. For the next little while, you can simply listen. This is a quiet place for long, calming bedtime stories made for adult listeners. Here, we wander through misty villages, candle-lit rooms, forgotten roads, old libraries, distant kingdoms, and gentle mysteries that slowly soften into sleep. If you feel like it, leave a comment telling us where in the world you are listening from tonight. It is always comforting to imagine all the quiet rooms gathered together beneath the same story. And if this story helps you relax, a like and a subscription are gentle ways to support the channel and find your way back for more. Now, let your eyes grow heavy. Let the night become kind. And let us begin. Tonight, the lightning comes without thunder. You are a young inventor in Nikola Tesla's workshop, surrounded by copper coils, rain-streaked windows, glowing glass bulbs, and notebooks filled with impossible ideas. Outside, the storm flashes over New York in blue-white silence. Inside, the machines begin to hum, not with the sharp crackle of electricity, but with something softer, almost like a lullaby. One by one, the bulbs above you ache with tiny stars inside them. A brass receiver begins tapping by itself. And somewhere beneath the sound of rain, you realize the storm's carrying a message. Not from the clouds, not from the city, but from somewhere far beyond the night. And if the machines are singing, you may have to learn how to answer gently. The lightning comes without thunder. It opens the night beyond the tall laboratory windows, and a white-blue flash, filling the room with the sharp silver outline of coils, wires, glass bulbs, brass levers, and notebooks stacked like small sleeping cities across the tables. For one breath, everything is bright. Then the light folds away. The rain continues, but the thunder never comes. You stand still beside the long workbench, one hand resting on a cool copper rail, listening to the space where the sound should have been. Outside, the storm presses against New York like a dark ocean, rain streaming down the window panes, rooftop gutters whispering and overflowing, carriage wheels hushing over the wet street far below. Inside the workshop, the machines wait in their usual quiet, or at least they do at first. Then the great coil at the center of the laboratory begins to hum. It is not the hard electric row you have heard on other nights. It is not the crackling, restless note that makes the lamps tremble and the hairs on your wrist rise. This hum is lower, softer, almost careful. Another coil joins it. Then the row of glass bulbs hanging from the rafters glows with a faint blue pulse, one after another, like stars remembering how to wake. The hum changes. It bends into a melody, a lullaby. You know enough of machinery to understand when something is expected, and this is not expected. You are Tesla's young assistant, though he often calls you an inventor in your own right when he thinks you are listening too much to other people's doubts. You spend your days in this laboratory among sketches, measurements, polished metal, scorched paper, rain-streaked glass, and ideas so large they do not fit properly into ordinary hours. You sharpen pencils until their points are clean and black. You copy equations into ledgers by lamplight. You keep the copper terminals polished, the storage jars labeled, the coils wound evenly, the tool drawers arranged so that Mr. Tesla can reach for a small wrench without looking and find it beneath his fingers, exactly where he expects it to be. You have learned the moods of the room. The low ceiling beams creak differently before rain. The floorboards near the western wall answer with a quiet note, and one of the dynamos is running. The large induction coil near the windows gives a dry click when the air is too damp. The pigeons nesting beneath the roof ledge rustle just before dawn, and the narrow iron stairs complain in 3 separate tones when Mr. Tesla climbs them after midnight. But you have never heard the machines sing. The melody drifts through the laboratory, soft and wordless, carrying itself along copper wires and through the hanging bulbs. It moves slowly, the way someone might hum to a child in a room where a candle is almost out. You look toward the back of the workshop. Mr. Tesla stands in the open doorway of the storage room, tall and still, his dark hair slightly untidy from the evening's work. A pencil is tucked behind his ear. His waistcoat is buttoned neatly, despite the hour, though one sleeve is dusted with chalk from the blackboard. He is not smiling, but there is a brightness in his eyes that often means the world has done something interesting. "You hear it," he says. It is not a question. You nod. Rain slides down the glass behind him in silver threads. The lamps overhead flicker and grow steady again, each flame surrounded by a faint blue halo. Mr. Tesla steps into the workshop. His gaze moves from the central coil to the wall of instruments, then to the storm outside. Lightning, he says softly, is usually a loud messenger. Another flash opens beyond the windows. No thunder follows. The machines hum the next phrase of the lullaby. This time, the melody is joined by something else. A small tap, a pause, 2 taps, another pause, 3 quick taps from the brass receiver on the far table. You cross the room without hurry but without delay. The polished wooden floor is warm beneath your shoes from the machinery that has been running since afternoon. The brass receiver sits beside a half-filled notebook, its needle trembling lightly over a smoked glass plate. Tap, pause. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, long pause. The needle moves by itself. It begins drawing a line, not random sparks, not the usual jagged signature of atmospheric electricity. A curve forms, then another. You lean closer. Mr. Tesla comes to stand beside you, his long fingers resting lightly on the edge of the table. The needle scratches across the plate with a whispering sound, drawing something between a waveform and a strand of music. Beneath it, in neat pulses, the receiver continues tapping. Rain, glass, blue light, copper, psalm. The room seems to gather around the little brass instrument. Mr. Tesla reaches for the notebook and turns to a fresh page. "Write what you hear," he says. "So you do." You take up the pencil waiting beside the inkstand and begin marking the taps as best you can. Short, long, short, pause. 3, 2, 1. A soft pulse from the coil, a higher note from the bulbs. The lullaby repeats, but not exactly. It changes by a single tone each time, like a phrase searching for its proper doorway. Another silent flash brightens the city. In that instant, the bulbs overhead flare with stars, not reflections, not sparks. Tiny star-shaped points appear inside the glass, blue, white, and far away, as if each bulb has become a small window into a deep and quiet sky. You look up. The laboratory ceiling seems higher than it was before. The rafters, cables, and hanging lamps are still there, but between them and each glowing bulb, little constellations shimmer and turn. Mr. Tesla follows your gaze. For a while he says nothing. Then, very gently, he whispers, "Not from the storm, perhaps." The pencil rests in your hand. The tapping continues. The lullaby moves through the machines. Outside, lightning opens the sky again, silent as a door. And somewhere within the hum, Beneath the notes and pulses and patient blue sparks, you begin to understand that the electricity is carrying a message, not from the clouds, not from the city, from somewhere far beyond the storm. The first thing Mr. Tesla asks for is not the great switch, nor the insulated gloves, nor the chart of atmospheric readings. He asks for tea. Strong, if Mrs. Novak has left any, says, though his eyes remain fixed on the glowing bulbs overhead. A clear mind listens better when the hands are warm. This is one of the things you have learned in the workshop. Wonder is rarely rushed, even when the machines wake in the middle of a silent storm and sing a lullaby no person has taught them. Mr. Tesla still believes in tea, clean paper, and properly sharpened pencils. You go to the little side room beside the rear stairs, where a small iron stove keeps a kettle warm through long nights of invention. Mrs. Novak, who comes in during the day to keep the laboratory from vanishing beneath paper and soot, has left a covered plate of dark bread, a jar of plum preserves, and 2 cups set upside down on a clean cloth. The room smells of coal warmth, rain-damp wool, and the faint sweetness of old tea leaves. While the kettle gathers itself to a quiet boil, you can still hear the machines through the wall. The melody has grown steadier. It is not quite like any lullaby, you know. It does not belong to one country or another. It has no words, yet it carries the shape of rest. It rises the way breath rises when someone is nearly asleep, then settles back down like a hand smoothing a blanket. You pour the tea, careful not to spill, and carry both cups back to the laboratory. Mr. Tesla has already moved 3 stools into a triangular arrangement around the brass receiver. Several notebooks lie open on the bench. On one page he has sketched the central coil, the bulbs, the receiver, and the windows. On another, he has begun copying your first sequence of taps with quick, elegant strokes. The storm presses close against the glass. Blue sparks crawl gently around the copper sphere at the top of the great coil, but instead of leaping wildly, they move in slow arcs, like fish beneath dark water. You set the tea down beside him. "Thank you," he says. He does not drink it yet. He bends over the smoked glass plate and studies the line the needle has drawn. You stand beside him, breathing in steam from your cup. The line is strange. It repeats the melody in marks. High curves, small dips, long smooth waves, then clusters of fine tremors. At first it seems only beautiful. Then you notice the same pattern appearing again and again, each time shifted slightly, as if the signal is trying to align itself with the instruments. Mr. Tesla taps one section of the glass with the end of his pencil. "Here," he says. "This is not music only." You lean closer. The section he points to contains 7 small peaks, then a long smooth line, then 3 peaks, and 7 again. "Counting?" you ask. "Perhaps," or greeting. He looks up at the bulbs. Machines are not fond of poetry unless someone hides mathematics inside it. The tapping from the receiver changes. 7 taps. Pause. 3 taps. A long, low hum. 7 taps again. Mr. Tesla lifts his eyebrows. You write the sequence in the notebook. The room seems to approve. A row of small bulbs brightens softly, and somewhere near the windows, a loose wire gives a single silver chime against its hook. On the far side of the workshop stands the cabinet of old experiments. You know its contents well. Failed filaments, cracked insulators, coils too small for their ambitions, jars filled with screws and pins sorted by size, and glass tubes that no longer glow, unless persuaded by extraordinary patience. At the bottom of the cabinet is a narrow drawer that is almost always locked. Tonight it is open. You notice it only because a faint blue line spills from the crack, no wider than a ribbon. Mr. Tesla, you say. He follows your gaze. The two of you cross the room together. The melody seems to follow, not louder, but nearer. The floorboards pass beneath your shoes, with soft, familiar creaks. Rain beads the windows. Beyond them, the city is a blur of lamps and wet rooftops. The drawer has opened just enough for you to see the edge of a small wooden box inside. You have never seen the box before. Its lid is dark walnut, smoothed with age, and set with a small round piece of blue glass. No lock holds it closed. No name is carved into it. Yet it seems to belong to the room more than many things that have sat here for years. Mr. Tesla does not reach for it immediately. He folds his hands behind his back and studies the drawer as though it is a guest that has arrived late but politely. "I put that away in Colorado," he says at last. You look at him. Colorado? A storm instrument, or the beginning of one. He listened well, but too widely. He gives the smallest shake of his head, though not in displeasure. There are times when a device hears more questions than the inventor is prepared to answer. The blue glass in the lid brightens. From the receiver, a new sequence taps out. 3, 7, 3, 7. One long note. The lullaby hums through the coils. Mr. Tesla reaches for the box and lifts it from the drawer. For an object that has slept for years, it seems almost warm. He carries it back to the main workbench and places it between your notebook and the smoked glass plate. "Open it," he says. You set down your tea. Your fingertips touch the lid. The walnut is smooth, neither hot nor cold. The blue glass glows once, faintly, like a distant lamp seen through fog. The lid opens without a sound. Inside lies a tuning fork made of pale metal, a folded sheet of thin paper, and a glass bulb no larger than a plum. The bulb contains a thread of copper so fine it seems like a hair caught in ice. Around the copper thread floats single point of blue light, not reflected light, not flame, a tiny star. The moment the box opens fully, the entire laboratory quits. The rain continues. The city continues. The storm continues to flash beyond the windows. But the machines draw their hum down into one long listening note. The little star inside the bulb pulses. Once, twice. Then the folded paper lifts by itself, unfolds slowly, and rests flat against the table. There is writing on it. Not much. Only 4 words in a careful hand that you recognize as Mr. Tesla's. If it sings, answer gently. Mr. Tesla reads the words as though they were written by someone else. For a moment, the only movement in the workshop is the rain sliding down the tall windows and the slow pulse of the small blue star inside the glass bulb. If it sings, answer gently. The words stick quietly on the paper, simple and impossible. You look from the note to the tuning fork, then to the great coil in the center of the laboratory. The machinist's copper windings catch the blue light and hold it in thin shining lines. Overhead, the hanging bulbs still contain their tiny constellations, each one turning at its own patient pace. You left yourself a reminder, you say. So it appears. Mr. Tesla touches the paper at one corner, careful not to disturb it. That was after a night of lightning so continuous. It seemed less like weather than conversation. The receiver taps once. A small acknowledgment, perhaps. Mr. Tesla turns his head slightly toward it. "Very well," he says to the room, in the tone he might use with an impatient visitor. "We are listening." The next flash of lightning makes no sound, but this time the laboratory answers. Before the darkness returns, blue sparks rise along the central coil in a slow spiral. The glass bulbs brighten. The tiny star in the plum-sized bulb lifts from its copper thread and floats to the center of the glass. The tuning fork begins to vibrate inside the open box. Its note is too soft to hear at first, more sensation than sound. moves through the table and into your fingertips, then up through your arms, light as a string being plucked somewhere behind the bones. The receiver starts tapping again. You write 7, 3, 7, 1, 1. Long pause. 5, 5, 2. Beside you. Smite you. Mr. Tesla copies the sequence into his own notebook and begins arranging the numbers in columns. His pencil moves quickly, but his breathing remains even. Not random, he murmurs. Not atmospheric noise. Not city interference. The tuning fork hums more clearly. The little star pulses in time. You notice something else. The bulbs overhead have changed. Their constellations are no longer scattered. Each one shows the same arrangement. 7 tiny lights in a curve, 3 below, and 1 slightly apart from the rest. You draw it in the margin. Mr. Tesla sees the sketch, and the receiver repeats the sequence. 7, 3, 7, 1. The melody folds around it. Then, faintly, the smoked glass plate begins to glow from underneath. Lines peer across it, not scratched by the needle this time, but written in blue light. The first line is a wave, the same shape as the lullaby's opening phrase. The second is a pattern of points. The third begins as a curve, then closes into a circle. You and Mr. Tesla watch as the instrument draws a map, not of streets, not of rivers, a map of the laboratory. There is the workbench, the central coil, the windows, the rear stairs, the cabinet, the blackboard, even the little side room with the stove appears as a small square of light. Then a second map begins to form beside it. It is still the laboratory, but not as it is. One wall is missing. Behind the bookcase near the north corner, a room appears where no room should be. You look across the workshop. The north bookcase stands between 2 narrow windows, filled with ledgers, patents, folded diagrams, and old volumes on mathematics, magnetism, and celestial mechanics. You have dusted those shelves many times. You have climbed the little ladder to reach the top. You have never seen a door behind it. The map insists otherwise. The hidden room glows in blue lines, small and round, with something at its center. Receiver taps 3 times. The tuning fork answers with 1 long note. Mr. Tesla lifts his teacup at last and takes a thoughtful sip. There are, he says, several possible explanations. You wait. Most of them are dull, he adds, and therefore probably wrong. The corner of your mouth lifts. The storm gives another silent flash, and the laboratory shines. The map on the glass plate brightens around the north bookcase. The invitation is clear. You carry a lamp, though the room hardly needs one. Mr. Tesla brings the small wooden box, holding it level in both hands. The little star inside the bowl glows through the open lid, casting blue reflections over the walnut edges. As you approach the north bookcase, the melody grows softer, as if it does not want to disturb the books. The shelves smell of dust, leather, old paper, and the faint metallic scent that gathers wherever electricity has been busy. You set the lamp on a nearby stool. Mr. Tesla places the box beside it. The tuning fork its note changes, rising by a half tone. Run your fingers along the shelves, searching for a latch. The books stand close together. Some are labeled in Mr. Tesla's neat hand. Others carry cracked gold titles from older libraries. A few are notebooks tied with ribbon. The blue light from the star falls across one spine in particular, a plain black ledger. No title. You pull it gently. It does not come free. Instead, it tilts forward with a soft click. Behind the bookcase, something releases. The entire shelf moves inward less than an inch, not loudly, not dramatically, only enough to let a line of blue light appear around its edges. Mr. Tesla gives a quiet sound of appreciation. Good craftsmanship, he says. Together you press the side of the bookcase. It swings open slowly, its hinges hidden and well-oiled despite years of sleep. Beyond it lies a narrow passage. The air that comes from within is cool and dry, carrying the scent of cedar wood, old copper, and rain before it falls. Your lamp flame leans toward the opening. The little star in the glass bulb pulses. The lullaby continues behind you, softer now, filling the laboratory like a promise kept in a whisper. You step through the hidden doorway. The passage is short, paneled in dark wood. At its end waits a small round room, no wider than a tower chamber, though you know there is no tower here. The ceiling is domed and painted deep blue. Across it, tiny silver marks form constellations you do not recognize. In the center of the room stands a brass stand. On the stand rests an old notebook, small coil wound with silver wire, and an empty glass cradle shaped exactly like the bulb in the wooden box. Mr. Tesla enters behind you. He grows very quiet. The hidden room seems to have been waiting for a long time, not impatiently, but faithfully. On the first page of the notebook is a single sentence, written in the same hand as the note in the box, a signal that arrives as music, maybe seeking rest, not reply. The hidden room receives the storm differently. In the main laboratory, rain beats against tall windows, and lightning fills the glass with brief white fire. Here, behind the bookcase, the sound softens. The rain becomes a steady murmur in the walls. The air holds a cool stillness, as though the room has been listening for years without interrupting. You stand beneath the painted dome and look up at the unfamiliar constellations. The silver marks are not arranged like the charts in the astronomy books. Some are too close together. Some curve in long chains, like notes on a musical staff. One cluster resembles the pattern the bulbs have been showing all evening. 7 lights above, 3 below, 1 apart. Mr. Tesla sets the wooden box on a small table beside the brass stand. The little blue star inside the glass bulb pulses faster, not urgently, more like recognition. You open the notebook carefully. The pages are thin but strong, edged with faint discoloration from age. The first entries are technical, full of sketches and measurements, coil diameters, spark lengths, atmospheric conditions, frequencies, resonant intervals. You recognize parts of the work from other ledgers, but here the notes have a different tone, less like an experiment being forced toward an answer, more like a conversation being slowly learned. Mr. Tesla reads over your shoulder. "Ah," he says softly. You glance at him. He is looking at a page dated years earlier. The entry describes a night of extraordinary lightning, a receiver that detected patterned pulses, and a tone that repeated in intervals, too consistent to be weather. Beneath the measurements is a line written in darker ink. It is possible the heavens are full of rooms, and some of them are singing in their sleep. The melody from the main laboratory drifts into the hidden chamber. The small silver-wound coil on the brass stand answers with a delicate hum. The empty cradle blows. You look at the glass bulb in the wooden box. Mr. Tesla follows your gaze. "Yes," he says, carefully. You lift the bulb from the box with both hands. It is very light. The glass is warm in the way a window becomes warm from morning sun, though there is no sun here. Inside, the tiny star drifts near the copper thread, brightening whenever the lullaby reaches the end of a phrase. You place it in the cradle. The effect is immediate. The silver coil hums clear and true. Blue light moves through the brass stand, down into the floor, up the walls, across the painted dome, one by one. The unfamiliar constellations overhead begin to shine. The room becomes a planetarium of quiet blue stars. The receiver in the main laboratory taps again. But now the sound comes through the walls like rain through a roof. The notebook's pages begin turning. Not quickly. One page lifts, pauses, and settles. Another follows, then another. They stop near the middle, where a diagram covers both pages. It shows 3 coils arranged in a triangle. The great coil in the laboratory, the small silver coil in this room, and the third marked only with a symbol, 7 lights, 3 below, 1 apart, between the coils. Mr. Tesla has written a phrase, the fatal circuit. Below that, in smaller letters, not to summon, not to command, task to receive without frightening the signal. He read the words twice. There is a gentleness in them that feels almost strange beside the mathematical precision of the diagrams. Yet it seems to belong here. The hidden room was not built for spectacle. It was built for listening. Mr. Tesla moves slowly around the brass stand, studying the connections. I remember this now, he says, or part of it. I dismantled the outer circuit before leaving Colorado, but I must have recreated the receiving chamber here. He touches the edge of the stand, then locked it away. Why? The question comes quietly. He takes time before answering. Because I did not yet know how to answer gently. The small star brightens. Mr. Tesla looks toward it. Yes, I am aware that was the important part. The faintest smile comes and goes. You turn back to the notebook. The next page contains a list of instructions, each written with unusual care. 1. Do not increase power beyond the lullaby zone pitch. 2. Pluck to their listening, forcing. 3. Use the fork only after the third silent flash. 4. Let the assistant mark the intervals. A second listener steadies the hand. 5. If the final note lowers, the message is tired. 6. If the final note rises, it is searching. 7. If the final note becomes still, offer the resting frequency. You read the last line again. The resting frequency, you say. Mr. Tesla nods slowly. Every system has one. Bridges, coils, glass, hearts, perhaps stars. A frequency at which it no longer strains against itself. The lullaby moves into its next phrase. This time you hear what you missed before. At the end, the final note rises. Searching, you and Mr. Tesla return to the main laboratory with the notebook, the tuning fork, and the small star glowing in its cradle. The hidden door remains open behind you, blue light resting along the edge of the bookcase. The workshop looks different now, not changed exactly, but revealed. The coils are no longer merely machines. The wires no longer seem like tangled necessities. Each copper line becomes part of a larger instrument, waiting to be tuned. The storm flashes silently beyond the windows. 1 flash, 2, 3. At the third, the tuning fork lifts from the table by the width of a breath and begins to sing. Its note threads itself through the lullaby. The receiver taps wildly for 3 seconds, then settles into a clear sequence. You write as quickly as you can. 7, 3, 1, 7, 5, 5, 1, long, long, 3. Mr. Tesla moves to the central controls. He does not throw the great switch. He adjusts the smallest dial first, turning it by a hair's breadth. The coil lowers its hum. He adjusts the second dial. The bulbs pulse more slowly. He rests one hand near the lever that feeds current from the dynamo, but does not touch it yet. Again, he says, the tuning fork sings. The machines answer. You mark the intervals, your pencil moving over the page in steady lines. The storm outside continues its silent conversation with the sky. And for the first time that night, the laboratory seems not to be receiving a message from far away. It seems to be learning how to reply. The first reply is to Bright. Mr. Tesla knows it before the coil even finishes sounding the note. The blue sparks around the copper sphere leap higher, and the bulbs overhead flare until the tiny constellations inside them blur into rings. He lowers the current at once. "Too much," he says. A shout, an answer. The machines settle. The lullaby continues, patient as rain. You turn to a fresh page and write the new sequence across the top. The act of writing steadies the moment. Numbers become marks. Marks become something you can look at without needing to grasp all of it at once. Mr. Tesla leaves the controls and comes to study your page. "You heard the third interval shorten," he says. You nod. And the last note rose again, searching still. A little star in the glass bulb rests in its cradle on the workbench. Since returning from the hidden room, it has grown clearer. Its edges are sharper now, and within it you can almost see motion, as if a distant blue-white fire is turning slowly in a great dark distance. Another silent flash fills the windows. The room answers with the lullaby opening phrase. You adjust the receiver needles so it rests more lightly against the smoked glass. The first plate is nearly full of lines and curves. You slide it into the rack and set a fresh one beneath the needle. Your hands know the task. This is ordinary work, even if nothing else about the night is ordinary, and its ordinariness is welcome. Mr. Tesla watches the bulbs overhead. "We are hearing the signal through lightning," he says. "But the lightning is not the source. It is only the doorbell." The receiver taps once, almost politely. You write that down too, though it may not be part of the message. The sound comes from the rear stairs. Not a machine sound, a human one. Soft steps, cautious but familiar. Mrs. Novak appears at the doorway with a shawl round her shoulders and a candle in one hand. She is small, gray-haired, and usually impossible to surprise. At the sight of the glowing bulbs, the open hidden door, the blue star in the glass, and Mr. Tesla standing at the controls in the middle of a thunderless lightning storm, she pauses for only a second. Then she says, "I thought the kettle might need more water." Mr. Tesla turns to her. "Mrs. Novak, the machines are singing." "So I heard." She looks around the workshop with calm attention. Very pretty. You fetch the kettle from the side room while she steps farther in. Her slippers make almost no sound on the floorboards. She looks up at the bulbs, and the tiny constellations brighten, as though pleased by the compliment. "Does it mean trouble?" she asks. "No," Mr. Tesla says. Then he considers. "Not if we are courteous. That is true of most visitors." She takes the kettle from you, pours more water into the pot, and glances at your notebook. "You are writing it all down?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. A thing not written down has to knock twice as hard next time." The receiver taps twice. Mrs. Novak looks at it. "I was not speaking to you," she says, "but kindly. A laboratory seems warmer after that. It is not that the mystery becomes smaller. If anything, it grows larger with every pulse from the far signal. But Mrs. Novak's presence reminds the room of bread, tea, folded cloths, swept corners, and the practical kindness that holds a place together while grand ideas pass through it. She does not stay long. After setting the refreshed kettle near the stove, she pauses beside the window. Outside, lightning flashes over the wet rooftops. Still no thunder. Mrs. Novak watches the silent light. "My mother used to say thunder is the sky moving furniture." Mr. Tesla looks interested. "Tonight," she continues, "perhaps it is trying not to wake someone." The lullaby lowers by one soft note. You see Mr. Tesla grow still. He turns slowly toward the central coil. "Not to wake someone," he repeats. The phrase moves through the room like a key finding its lock. You look at the notebook page from the hidden chamber. If the final note lowers, The message is tired. If the final note rises, it is searching. If the final note becomes still, offer the resting frequency. What if it is searching for a way to sleep? You ask. The words sound strange, but not foolish. Mr. Tesla's eyes brighten in the blue glow. Or for a way to let something else sleep. The next sequence begins before he finishes speaking. This time it comes not only through the receiver, but through everything. The brass rail beneath your hand taps. The glass bulbs pulse. The tuning fork trembles. The small star in the cradle flickers in a pattern so delicate you can hardly write fast enough. You mark what you can. 7, 3, 1, 1, 7, 3, 1. Long, long. Then the lullaby stops. The silence that follows is wide. Rain fills it, but gently. In each hanging bulb, the tiny constellation changes. The 7 lights dim. The 3 below them draw closer. The single light apart from the rest flickers, brightens, and moves toward the others. Not a map now, a story. The small star in the cradle pulses once, then projects a thin beam of blue light onto the wall above the blackboard. An image appears. At first it is only a shimmer, then it becomes a shape. A field of darkness filled with countless points of light. Stars, perhaps, or sparks, or windows. In the center hangs a cluster of blue-white lights arranged like the pattern you have seen all evening. 7 above, 3 below, 1 apart. The single light trembles. The lullaby returns, but quieter than before. You understand then, not in words exactly, but in the way one understands that rain means shelter and a low lamp means evening. The message is not asking Earth to answer a question. It is asking for help finishing a song. Somewhere far beyond the storm, beyond the reach of streets and oceans and ordinary maps, a lonely note has drifted away from the rest of its melody. The machines are not humming to impress you. They are humming so the lost note can find its way back. The midpoint of the night arrives without a clock. No bell rings from the street. No whistle sounds from the harbor. Yet the laboratory knows. The rain softens. The silent lightning grows farther apart. The blue star in the cradle burns steadily, as though it has finally found a wick. You sit at the workbench with 3 notebooks open before you. One holds the first tapping sequences. Another holds the melody written in your best attempt at musical notation. The third is the old hidden room notebook, its pages resting open to the diagram of the cradle circuit. Mr. Tesla stands at the blackboard, drawing connections. Mrs. Novak has gone back downstairs, but she has left the plate of bread and preserves beside the tea. One slice sits untouched near your elbow. Another has vanished into Mr. Tesla's pocket, where he sometimes keeps food until he remembers it several hours later. The laboratory has become a quieter kind of busy. You are no longer reacting to each strange event as it appears. You are working with it. That changes everything. The message repeats every few minutes. A lullaby, the tapping, the rising final note. Each time, you and Mr. Tesla adjust the receiving circuit more gently, less current, finer tuning, smaller movements. The gray coil, usually eager to fill the room with power, now hums like a large animal persuaded to breathe slowly. The goal is not to reach farther. The goal is to disturb less. This feels important. You have spent many days in the laboratory learning how much the world can hold when energy is pushed through it. Atoms glowing without wires, motors turning, sparks leaping across air, the invisible made visible in blue fire. But tonight teaches a different lesson. Power can also listen. It can wait at the threshold. It can lower its voice. Mr. Tesla steps back from the blackboard and studies his diagram. We need the 3rd coil, he says. You look toward the hidden room. The symbol from the notebook? Yes. The circuit is incomplete without it. There is no third coil. Not built, he says. But perhaps prepared. He crosses to the cabinet of old experiments and opens the lower doors. You follow with the lamp. The shelves inside are crowded with boxed parts wrapped in cloth, coils of wire, metal rings, spare glass tubes, and instruments whose purposes you only partly know. Mr. Tesla moves things carefully aside until he reaches a long, narrow case at the back. It is made of cedar wood and tied with a faded blue ribbon. He pauses. "Ah," he says. "There you are. Inside the case lies a coil unlike the others. It is small enough to hold in two hands, wound not with copper, but with a pale wire that looks silver in the lamp glow. Around it are fixed 3 brass feet, and a ring of tiny glass beads. At its center is an empty space shaped like a small bowl. Beside it lies a note. This time the handwriting is not Mr. Tesla's. It is finer, rounder, and written in dark brown ink. For the night when lightning learns manners, Mrs. Novak's handwriting. You look toward the stairs. Mr. Tesla reads the note and blinks once. Then he folds it very carefully and places it in his waistcoat pocket. She has always had an excellent memory, she says. Together you carry the third coil to the center of the workshop. The map on the smoked glass plate brightens as you set it down. The great coil, the silver coil from the hidden room, and the newly found cedar case coil form a triangle around the workbench. The small blue star rests at the center. The lullaby deepens. A single far note trembles in the projected star field above the blackboard. You take the tuning fork from the wooden box. It is light and cool. When you hold it, the metal hums faintly against your fingers, but it does not sound until you lift it near the blue star. Mr. Tesla lowers the lamps. One by one, the ordinary yellow flames become small and soft, leaving the laboratory lit mostly by blue light and rain. The city beyond the windows has grown quiet. The streets shine darkly below. A few windows glow in nearby buildings, but most have gone dim. Somewhere beneath the roof ledge, the pigeons rustle in their sleep. Mr. Tesla stands at the controls. You stand beside the workbench with the tuning fork in one hand and the pencil in the other. The next lightning flash comes. Silent. The great coil hums. The silver coil answers. The third coil wakes with the note so low and warm it seems to come from the floorboards themselves. The blue star rises from its glass bulb, just slightly. It floats within the cradle, no longer touching the copper thread. The projected star field becomes clearer. The 7 lights shine. The 3 lights shine. The single light part flickers, like a candle in a distant window. Mr. Tesla speaks quietly. Now, you strike the tuning fork against the small padded block beside the receiver. Its note rings pure, soft. The 3 coils catch it and turn it, not louder, but wider. Sound moves outward through copper, silver, glass, rain, air, and lightning. It meets the lullaby and folds into it. The final note freezes. You listen, not with effort. Effort makes the sound blur. Instead, you let the room carry the note to you. You let the rain keep time. You let the blue bulbs breathe overhead. You let the pencil wait until your hand knows what to write. There, the missing interval. Small, almost shy. You mark it. Mr. Tesla adjusts the smallest dial. The final note rises again, but less. You strike the tuning fork a second time. The coils answer. The note finds the interval you marked and rests against it. On the wall above the blackboard, the single far light moves. Not much, just a little closer to the others. The room holds its breath. The lullaby plays again. This time, you do not write the numbers. You write the shape of the song. Its rise, its pause, its returning curve. The pencil glides across the page. Mr. Tesla lowers the current another fraction. The blue star settles into a slower pulse. The single farlight moves again. Closer. The machines hum as gently as machines can hum. The storm outside flashes once more, distant now and pale behind the rain. And in that pale, silent light, the lone star returns to its constellation. The laboratory does not cheer. Nothing bursts open. Nothing shatters. No great blaze of triumph runs along the wires. Instead, the machines exhale. The great coil lowers into a warm, even tone. The bulbs overhead dim until their tiny constellations become soft blue freckles inside the glass. The receiver taps once, rests, then taps once more. The lullaby changes. It is complete now. The missing note sits inside it so naturally that you almost cannot remember where the absence had been. The melody rises, turns, gathers its scattered light, and returns home to itself. On the wall, the projected star field glows with all 11 lights together. 7 above, 3 below, 1 no longer apart. For a long while, you and Mr. Tesla simply stand in the blue quiet and listen. The room feels larger than before, but also gentler. It is strange how a place can become both at once. The laboratory is still full of tools and wires, equations and unfinished work, but now every object seems held within the same soft order as the completed song. The rain continues. The storm has moved east, leaving only occasional flashes far beyond the rooftops. The blue star descends into its glass bulb and rests again on the copper thread. Mr. Tesla turns away from the controls. "He found the interval," he says. The words are simple, but they settle warmly. "You heard it," he adds. "I was still trying to calculate what needed to be listened for." You look down at the notebook. The final page is full of curves, numbers, marks, and one line written without quite remembering when you wrote it. The answer was not louder. It was kinder. Mr. Tesla reads it over your shoulder. He says nothing for a moment. Then he nods. "That," he says, "is worth keeping." The hidden room behind the bookcase glows faintly, its doorway still open. The blue light along the shelf has softened to the color of early dawn, though dawn is still some hours away. You and Mr. Tesla carry the small star bulb back into the hidden chamber. The 3 coils remain connected in the workshop, humming quietly, holding the completed lullaby in the wires like warmth in a blanket. Inside the round room, the painted constellations on the dome have changed. The pattern of 7, 3, and 1 now shines at the very center. Below it, new silver lines have appeared, so fine they might have been painted by moonlight. They form words, not in ink, not in any alphabet you know. Yet as you look at them, meaning arrives, not as a voice in your ear, not as a thought forced into your mind, more like the way a familiar song can carry words even when no one sings them. Thank you for answering softly. You set the bulb back into the glass cradle. The little star dims until it is no brighter than a night light. Mr. Tesla opens the hidden notebook to a blank page and places it on the brass stand. The page waits. A thin line of blue light moves across it. Slowly, carefully, new marks appear. A final message. This time, it comes in words. They write themselves in Mr. Tesla's own language, perhaps because the room knows who built it, or perhaps because kindness always translates itself into the nearest open door. We heard your storm. We borrowed its light. One of our notes had wandered. You returned it without calling it lost. Rest well. Small bright world. He read the message twice. Small bright world. The words are almost too large and too tender to hold all at once. Mr. Tesla stands very still beside you, The blue light rests along the sharp planes of his face, softening them. For once, he does not seem to be measuring the distance between what is known and what might be known next. He only looks at the page. Then he closes the notebook gently. "We will not publish this tomorrow," he says. "No, no." He rests his hand on the cover. "Some things should be understood before they are announced. Some should be guarded by quiet for a while." The room seems to approve. The glow in the dome lowers. Back in the main workshop, the ordinary lamps begin to strengthen again, yellow and familiar. The machines are still humming, but the sound has become more like the memory of music than music itself. "Get together. You and Mr. Tesla disconnect the third coil first, then the silver coil, then the great coil." Each step is done carefully, with notes made in the margins. The receiver plates are stacked between sheets of soft paper. The tuning fork returns to the wooden box. The old hidden room notebook is wrapped in clean cloth and placed on the central workbench, no longer forgotten behind the wall. Mrs. Novak appears once more at the doorway near the stairs, as if she has timed her return not by clock but by atmosphere. "Well?" she asks. Mr. Tesla looks at her. "The night has been courteous," he says. "Good." She comes in carrying a fresh folded towel, and begins wiping rain that has leaked near the window. "Then perhaps everyone may sleep before breakfast." The receiver taps once. Mrs. Novak points the towel at it. "That includes you." For the first time all night, Mr. Tesla laughs softly, not loudly, not for long, but enough that the room seems to settle more deeply into itself. The final hour of the storm is the quietest. There is no more lightning near the city, only a dim glow now and then behind the clouds. Far away over the dark water and the sleeping roofs, the rain loses its sharpness and becomes fine, steady, almost mist-like against the windows. The laboratory rests in a low gold and blue light. Most of the machines have gone still. The great coil stands at the center of the room like a tall, silent tree after rain. The bulbs overhead are no longer full of constellations, but one or two still hold a faint blue point, as if they are reluctant to forget the sky they briefly contained. You help put the room back into order. Not completely. A laboratory is never truly tidy, especially this one. The dangerous switches are opened. The plates are stored. The dials are marked. Wires are loosened from their temporary paths. And no notebooks are stacked where they will be found again. The hidden bookcase remains slightly ajar. Mr. Tesla notices you looking at it. "Leave it so," he says. "A room that has spent so long closed should not be shut again too quickly." So the blue-lit chamber stays open, breathing its cedar and copper coolness into the workshop. Mrs. Novak sets out one final pot of tea, weaker this time, with more hot water than leaves. It is the sort of tea meant not to wake the mind, but to keep company with the last edge of night. She cuts the remaining bread into 3 pieces and spreads each with plum preserves. You sit at the long workbench. Mr. Tesla sits across from you, though only after Mrs. Novak gives him a look that makes even great inventors remember chairs. For a while, no one speaks. The rain speaks enough. The workshop around you seems changed by its own quiet. The chalkboard still carries diagrams of the cradle circuit. The smoked glass plates still hold the scratch lines of the signal. The old walnut box sits closed beside the notebook, its blue glass lid dark now, except for the faintest glow at the center. You wrap both hands around your cup. Steam rises. Beyond the window, the city looks washed and softened, every roof and chimney touched by rain. Somewhere a horse snorts in the street below. Somewhere a door closes gently. Somewhere a clock begins to consider morning, but does not yet commit to it. Mr. Tesla reaches for the notebook where you wrote the final curve of the lullaby. He turns the pages slowly. "You know," he says, "many people think invention is the art of making the world obey. You look at the blue marks, the numbers, final line about kindness. And tonight, he says, it seems invention may also be the art of learning how the world wishes to be answered." Mrs. Novak sips her tea. "That sounds less noisy. Usually," he says, "the three of you sit with that. No grand conclusion is needed. The night has already given more than enough." After tea, Mrs. Novak takes the cups away and insists that Mr. Tesla eat the bread he has forgotten in his pocket before it becomes part of another experiment. He obeys with the distracted dignity of a man who has spoken to a star and still must be reminded of crumbs. You return once more to the hidden room. Alone this time. The passage behind the bookcase is darker now, but not unwelcoming. The round chamber waits with its painted dome and brass stand. The little blue star rests in the glass bulb, dim and steady. The silver marks on the ceiling no longer shine, but you can still see their shapes in the lamplight. You open the hidden notebook to the page where the final message appeared. The words remain. "Rest well, small bright world." You do not touch them. You only stand there for a moment, listening. No tapping, no urgent signal, no searching note. Only rain, distant pipes, old wood, and the faint sleeping hum that all buildings seem to have when the night is deep enough. On the blank page beside the message, you write one line of your own, answered gently during the silent lightning storm. You close the notebook. When you return to the workshop, Mr. Tesla is standing at the windows, looking out over the city. The first gray suggestion of dawn has begun to gather behind the clouds. It is not sunrise yet, but the dark has loosened. "The world will be loud again soon," he says without turning. "Yes." "Good," he says. "It has many things to do." A small pause. Then he adds, "But not yet." The two of you lower the lamps one by one. The laboratory changes with each flame turned down. Shadows soften around the tables. Brass loses its hard shine. The copper coils become dark, graceful shapes. The notebooks sleep in their stacks. The walnut box rests beside them, quiet and closed. At the central workbench, Mr. Tesla places the tuning fork on top of the hidden notebook. "For tomorrow," he says. Then, after a moment, he moves it slightly to the left, aligning it with the edge of the cover. "For a better tomorrow." You smile faintly at the precision of it. He collects his coat from the chair, but does not put it on yet. Instead, he looks once more around the workshop. It is the look of a person saying good night to a room that has done its work well. At last he nods. "Sleep when you can," he says. "Inventors require dreams. Otherwise, they begin stealing them from machines." Then he goes down the rear stairs, his steps sounding in their three familiar notes. You remain a little longer. The rain has nearly stopped. A few drops still travel down the windows, slow and shining. The city beyond is muted, silver-black, half awake and half dreaming. The hidden door behind the bookcase stands open, just enough for a thin line of blue to rest on the floor. You take the final notebook, the one filled with your own careful marks, and place it in the drawer beneath the workbench. Not hidden, not locked away, simply kept. The receiver gives one last tap, very soft. You look at it. It does not tap again. Perhaps it was only cooling metal. Perhaps one last thank you. Either way, the sound is small enough to leave undisturbed. You turn down the final lamp. The workshop settles into the blue-gray hush before morning. Coils, bulbs, wires, windows, rain, notebooks, and old wooden floors all rest together in the same gentle dark. Somewhere far beyond the clouds, the completed lullaby travels with its return note, carrying its quiet shape across distances too wide for maps. Here, in the laboratory, there is nothing more to solve tonight. The storm has passed without thunder. The machines have sung and gone still. The message has found its way home. And you, young inventor, Tesla's assistant, listener of lightning, and keeper of the final interval, sit for a little while beside the rain-cooled window as the first pale light gathers over the sleeping city. The room is warm. The world is quiet. The last blue spark fades softly inside the glass. And the morning waits, kindly, on the other side of rest.